Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Session Share, the Coaches Podcast. My name's Craig Burtwessel, and I'm excited to have Rob Porter as our guest today. Rob has a UEFA B licence, FA Coach Youth Award, and has coached at all levels from grassroots to developmental centres to academies. Rob delivers CPD events for the Oxfordshire Football Association and has even taught coach education to inmates in prison. Can't wait to talk about that one, Rob. How are you doing today, mate?
I'm not too bad. I'm just getting over a cold, so I apologise if I don't sound amazing, but I'm getting there. So it's been a long day on holiday camps. That's one of my responsibilities is being in charge of the Oxford United community holiday camps, which has been very full on this week. We've got 3 camps running. All 3 camps were sold out today, so that's really good. And it's been a full on day, but a very productive day.
Fantastic. So if you fall asleep towards the end of the podcast, I'll understand why. So that's good to know. So Rob, tell me a little bit about your background. What got you interested in football?
In fairness, I played youth football into men's football, gave up. It's actually quite funny. I was looking on the whole game system, and actually the last time I actually played was 2004. So that shows it's been a long time. I had a few back problems, back surgery, all the rest of it. So stopped playing, and then didn't really have any involvement with football until my son started playing, and the team that my eldest played for, one of the coaches was stepping away, so he asked for any volunteers, so I stepped up, and kind of it just all spiraled on from there, to be honest with you. So worked out that actually I wasn't the worst at it, and it was actually something I really enjoyed, and I've kind of gone from there to it becoming my full-time job. So, it's been an interesting journey.
Fantastic. And when you got kind of roped into it with your son's team and everything like that, what was like your motivation to get your career started?
So basically, just to start with, it was just to spend a bit more time with my son and obviously help the team out because they needed a coach. So I thought, well, it's something that it helps my son, it helps the team. So why not give it a go? And that was kind of the start, and sort of it just spiraled from there.
Fantastic. As it was spiraling through and you were examining like the potential of doing it as a hobby, then making it into a career, did you come up with like a coaching philosophy?
Yeah, so I've actually written out my coaching philosophy. I did it a few years ago, and every now and again I'll go back to it just to update it, see if anything's kind of changed. Which, in fairness, when you become more experienced, you kind of get to know yourself as a coach. And I think obviously different experiences might impact you differently. But on the whole, I think as you progress, you kind of have that understanding of yourself and what you expect and what you want to see out of sessions and matches. So I think it's something that I don't think it should ever be set in stone. I think it should be always a working document. But yeah, it's one of those things where I've kind of evolved it over the years and to where the point I am now.
That's fantastic. I love that comment about evolving your philosophy because we're like taught on all our licenses that we do to be able to develop a philosophy, make sure it like impacts the way we think about the game, the way we teach the game, and everything like that. But I love that word in particular of development, and basically the philosophy should be like organic, shouldn't it? It should grow with you. And like obviously I'm at the age of like 42 now, and I started coaching when I was in my teens. So the philosophy that I came up with when I was 18, for example, would be very different to what I've got now. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And I think coaching's changed, at least I hope it has. When I played, it was a lot of laps, it was a lot of lines, and these days you still see some of it, but I think coach on the whole's changed where it's more player, it's about the player, it's player led rather than it being all about the coach. So I think I think your age definitely impacts it as well, and I think the experiences you have. So who you work with, what teams you work with, and I think that's where working from under 5, 6 year olds all the way up to men, I think is probably helped benefit me because I think if your philosophy you've only ever coached under sevens, under eights, it's going to be vastly different than a men's team's philosophy for their manager.
Totally agree. I've always said that I got better as a coach because in the beginning of my career, very early on, I hate to say this, and some of them might be listening, but I worked for some bad companies, and I felt like that. Though working for those bad companies helped me evolve as a coach, because now all of a sudden, I had to think I'm off the top of my head. They told me 15 would turn up and only 5 turns up, or they told me 5's turned up and 50 turn up, and they say I've got this much space and I don't have that much space. All these sort of things you come up with as a coach, don't you? That help shape you.
Yeah, definitely. And adaptability is massive. I was actually speaking to a coach the other day who was saying it's one of the things that she really struggles with is adapting sessions. And I said, to a certain extent, obviously having that plan B in your session plan, so if you've got a few less or a few more, is great. But to a certain extent, that kind of comes through experience, being in those situations and knowing, like, actually, well, this has happened to me before. I'm actually, A, I've got a plan, but B, I think the more experienced you are, the less you panic in those situations. Where like a younger coach, like, oh wow, I've got 5 more than I expected, and that means my plan's not going to work, and that can be quite daunting. But when you've been there and done that a lot, I think it becomes far easier, and that's where experience is massively important for me.
I totally agree. I always liken it to when someone comes out to say fix your sink or something like that. You hire a plumber to come around your house, and you pay for them for the hour, but they're done within 15 minutes. I kind of liken that the fact that their experience has helped them get it done within 15 minutes. And what I relate to that with soccer is the fact, or football, is the fact that when we do a session, someone asked me the other day, how long do you spend developing your sessions? And I said, I can be done in 10 minutes or I could be done in 90. I said, however, that's because I've had that much years experience to understand how to break down every small little detail and do that a lot quicker. So I wouldn't say to you as a new coach, spend 10 minutes on something and it's going to be a foolproof session, because that's not going to be the case. It's going to be a case of you've got to think of every possible scenario that might come up. And you've also, as you just alluded to there, have a plan B, have a plan C if the conditions don't go your way. So I 100% agree, Rob.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, experience. It's one thing I know. A lot at the moment, there's a lot of talk about qualifications, and obviously qualifications are vitally important. And the higher up you get, obviously they are needed for certain positions. But as I said to a lot of coaches, the more experience you get, the better you're going to get. As long as obviously you do the review part of it, because a lot of coaches do the plan pretty well, do the delivery well, but then when it comes to review, they don't. And I think the more time you spend reviewing and recognizing where you need to improve, it develops you a lot faster.
Fantastic. Couldn't agree more. We're going to be back after a short message from our Zencaster sponsor. Do you have a story to tell that the world needs to hear? Have you struggled with reaching new audiences who are engaged with your story? It might be time for you to start a podcast. Let me tell you about a platform we use here at Session Share. Zencaster makes it super easy to produce a high quality broadcast with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes ums, ahs, you knows, and 22 other speech patterns. Zencaster makes it super easy to produce a podcast that sounds great. Ready to tell your story? Check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencaster. Welcome back to Session Share, the Coaches Podcast. We're here talking with Rob Porter. And Rob, we've just had a really great conversation talking about like your motivations in football and your coaching philosophy. What I'd like to do now is delve a little deeper into player development. So tell us about some of the issues that you find when it comes to player development.
Um, Obviously, courses. Play coaches trying to get onto courses. I know is a big thing. And I think the thing, especially going to sort of being in that stage of my career where I'm kind of going into a bit more coach development side of things, is actually trying to just reach coaches who maybe don't go to CPD events, because CPD events are absolutely brilliant and they're good for coach development, but they only tend to reach the people who actually want to go to them. I did one the other week and I said to them at the end, no, hats off, you've come out on a Tuesday night and spent 2 hours of your time, and they're all volunteers, they're not being paid to do it. But it's how do you reach those coaches who actually won't take 2 hours to go to a CPD event? And in fairness, if you're facilitating players playing, then you're doing a good job. As long as you're obviously not doing anything that's a safeguarding issue or anything like that. But it's how do we, as coach developers especially, kind of reach those coaches? And it's one thing I'm doing with my role with Oxford United in the community is doing in-house CPD for grassroots clubs. So rather than them coming out to a CPD event, actually we're going to them and we're actually going into their environment, so they're there at the time. And I think more of that, I think, is probably the way to kind of reach those coaches.
I 100% agree. I feel that you hit the nail on the head. Being able to get as much information to people as much as possible is the key, because I live in America. I'm English, but I live in America, and I've gone through the whole system. I have my A license, and the A license alone at the moment costs you $4,500 in order to get the A license. Obviously, I'm paying it because I'm a full-time professional and I know it will benefit my career and everything like that. But here's the thing, there's so many coaches out there that are volunteer based, or they're doing it on their own. They're W-2s, they're doing it without paying tax, or paying their own tax, I should say, all the way through. So how do you think we can get out there more and like help these coaches, rather than paying all these ridiculous finances?
Yeah, I think that the CPD event sort of bit is big, going into clubs and probably upskilling people in the club so that they can actually deliver the CPD themselves, I think, as well. Empowering. The vast majority of clubs have got senior people in there who have the knowledge, and actually empowering them to actually go out and spread that knowledge to the other coaches in the club, I think is really important as well. But also
Yeah.
things like these podcasts, social media, I think play a really powerful kind of role in it as well. But I think at the same time, it's getting those coaches to recognise in these ways of developing themselves.
Yeah, I feel that to go on what you said, it's like the old analogy of teach a man to fish, right? So it's kind of a case of we need more Rob Porters out there that's going to like pass the message on, for example, to every single person, because like you're only one man, you can teach so much, but if you can teach 10, that's going to teach another 10 and
Yeah.
teaches another 10 and so on, that's obviously going to help grow. And you mentioned the fact that coaches getting the opportunity to listen to podcasts, check social media, websites out there. And that was the sole reason I started Session Share a while back, where I started doing videos on YouTube. And the next elevation was to create a podcast so I could talk to coaches like yourself in order to share information and help grow so much. So talking about that, do you, if you were to meet a new coach, what would the biggest advice you would give them in order to help them in their career?
There's loads of advice I suppose you could give. I think the main one though actually is to actually just enjoy it. A lot of coaches, they get stressed about coaching, and they be in fairness, and I suppose it can be stressful at times. If things aren't going particularly well, but actually just enjoy the process and enjoy the time you get to spend on the grass. Because for me, it's almost therapeutic, because it's like actually everything else in the world isn't going on. You're just there. You're helping these players improve. You're hopefully providing enjoyable sessions for them, and actually, yeah. So it's just that enjoyment factor. I think enjoy it as a coach, because a lot of coaches you see very stressed out, and how you are, especially as a coach when you're coaching, I think rubs off on your players. So a coach who's enjoying themselves and is relaxed and is energetic, I think helps rub that off on the players. Where if a coach is stressed or angry or that side of it, I think that kind of rubs off as well. So yeah, I think just that, have that enjoyment factor, enjoy what you're doing, I think is massive.
It's funny you mentioned that, because when I had Peter Prickett on not too long ago, when I asked him the same question, he told him to relax. So it's funny that you had the very similar look at it there, because I know you know Peter pretty well. So yeah, it's great, and I would agree with that, because so many coaches are so stressed about getting their points across. One of the things I mentioned as a coach's tip not too long ago on my Session Share YouTube channel was the fact that read the room is what I called it. It's a case of when you're training, I know you come in with a plan, But there's sometimes where that plan needs to go out the window if you feel that they've had a stressful week at school, if it's exam week or something along those lines. Sometimes you need to kind of relax a little, understand that it is a game at the end of the day, and we want the players to enjoy it. Obviously, we want them to grow, we want them to develop, we want them to achieve. But there's got to be times as well you understand that most of us coach children, whether they're 18-year-olds or 3-year-olds, we coach children. It's essentially like that. So we have to teach them in a way that's going to be enjoyable. The 0.01% that would be listening to this podcast that work with professionals, I get it. But even you watch these like YouTube clips of Arsenal, Villa, Man City and everything like that, but the amount of times they do like a fun warm-up where it's like juggling into a trash can or something along those lines, I 100% with what you're saying there, that you just got to make sure that it's enjoyable for you as well as the players, because they read off you very well.
Yeah, definitely. I think enjoyment is, going back to philosophy, enjoyment's the main thing. Because I think when I did my UEFA B, and at the end of my presentation, the tutor said, because enjoyment was a big thing on there on my presentation, well, should every session be enjoyable, whether it's a professional team or, and I said, oh yeah, and he said, yeah, that's right. At the end of the day, if you're playing football, yes, if you're a professional, you're getting paid to do it, and fair play to them, but you should still try to enjoy your job, shouldn't you? So yeah, enjoyment is probably the biggest factor for me, to be honest with you.
I remember not too long ago, I was doing a coach evaluation with one of our coaches, and I was evaluating him, and I mentioned about bringing more fun into your session. And when I said that, he was very defensive, and he said, well, I'm not a clown, I'm here to teach them. And the one thing I had to try and get him to understand, and eventually he did, was the fact that when we say have fun, it doesn't mean ignore everything about coaching. It can just be fun, because at the end of the day, the game should be fun. And if the game at the end, when it's just two teams, 2 goals, and try to score the most games, if that bit's not fun, they're really not, shouldn't be involved in the game of football, to be honest, because that's what it all equals. But like, you can do shooting games, you can do passing games, you can do 1v1 games that are fun, but are effective as well. So no one's asking you to go out there and be a clown, but we are asking you to bond with the players, because that bonding between a coach and a player is really important, isn't it?
Definitely. And I think it goes back to what you said a little while ago about understanding your players. Like, if it's been exam week and they're stressed out, that's where asking your players, asking them questions, things like that. Because otherwise, if you don't, you'd never realise that, and you'd be like, "Well, why is this session not going very well?" Actually, it's because everyone's stressed out because they've got GCSEs or mocks or or the American equivalent, and actually, the player before the person before the player is massively important for me. Understanding the players, knowing what makes them tick, and I think that's a trick that a lot of coaches miss. It's just, that's my centre mid, that's my number 9. Where actually that's Johnny or Sarah or whoever, and they're actually a person. So yeah, getting to know your players is massive.
Yeah, I remember a while back when I was teaching high school, I was talking to I was coaching the boys' high school team, and I was talking to the high school girls coach. And he told me that he feels in his season, he'll spend more time in Rita's than he will on the football pitch. Just so you know what Rita's is for our English viewers and everyone else, Rita's is like an ice cream shop, for example, right? And what he was trying to allude to there was the fact that the bonding off the field, especially for girls, is more important than the ones on it. Because here's the thing, we've played the game, and we've played the game with people that we don't necessarily like when we're on the field. We'll shout, we'll argue, everything like that. But as soon as we cross back over that white line, it's kind of like forgotten about it, whether it's the opposition or or your teammates. With the girls' game, I feel like sometimes that can blend out of the field and then into their social lives. So it's a case of you've got to make sure you coach the person as well as coach the player, because then they will grow with you. And after being a coach for girls for many years, I only coach boys at the moment, but that's not by choice, because I really do like enjoying girls and women in general. But once you have a bond with that player, I feel like they will do anything for you. Like they would run through a brick wall, and you just get that bond a lot quicker than you do with guys, because guys just turn up, they're all cold, calm, and collective with it, and just want to play the game. But with the girls' teams that I've coached, I've always created that bond, and it's made football more enjoyable when I've gone there, because it's just like you get to know them as people as well as players.
Yeah, there's a great quote which I probably get wrong. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and I think that's so powerful. And it's like it's the asking questions is one side of it, but then it's just remember those little bits. It's like, oh, what are you doing at the weekend? Oh, I'm going on my Duke of Edinburgh award, and actually the next week it's like at the start of the session, how was it? How did you get on at the weekend? So and stuff like that. Actually, it's like, do you know what? Actually, the coach cares about what I'm doing outside, and just little things like that. And then actually, when it comes to the coaching side of it, you get a lot more out of them because actually, it's there's something there where it's not just a player to them, I'm actually a person. So, spending that little bit of time asking questions and then actually following up on it, I think it makes everything better. With everything sort of inside the session.
I agree. I mentioned again as a coaching tip recently the fact that preparation can actually help with bonding. And what I mean by that is like some coaches I've seen, if their session starts at 5:30, they arrive at 5:25. They're running around, they're throwing cones down, they're scattered, and it's all over the place like that. And then there's other coaches like I try to be at least. I get there at 5 o'clock. I will set up, and I'll all be set up before the players even arrive. So when the players arrive, I can have that few minutes of talking to them without feeling stressed that, oh, I've got to set this, I've got to do that, and talk. And I also feel that like those water breaks can be really important as well. You don't want to send them for a water break just because you want to set up the next activity. If you've prepared by just taking a cone up or putting a cone down to change from one activity to the next, you can use those water breaks to have those little moments of conversation, throw a joke in, make sure they know you're a person and not just a robot, everything like that. So it really does help with that bonding experience.
Yeah, definitely 100%. No, agreed with that.
So speaking of like advice that we mentioned, do you do you remember any advice that you were given that has really helped you in your journey?
I think one of the things that was a big kind of light bulb moment for me was one of my tutors was saying about the balance between repetition and realism. And I think that's something that I didn't get right a lot of the time, especially as a younger coach. And that obviously goes down to that balance between repetition and realism will depend on who you're coaching. If it's a under sevens foundation phase team, might be different from a men's team. But if you have a session that is very kind of repetitive but has no realism to the game, yes, players might work on passing a lot, but then actually when they get into a game situation and then there's 19 other players, 20 other, whatever players on the pitch, actually it could be a struggle. And at the other end of it, if it's all realism and actually someone leaves a session that's worked on finishing but has had no shots, then actually have they become a better player? So getting your balance in your sessions where actually there's that balance between repetition and realism, I think is really important, and that's kind of one of the key things that always stuck with me.
I love that. I always refer to it as my aha moment, because I do everything in my session that leads towards the game at the end that shows them how it works in a realistic environment. And then, like, when I do the old stop freeze technique or whatever, you see the kids, as you say, the light bulb going off, the eyes go wider. It's like, oh, this relates to the warm up earlier when we were moving around the mannequin or the cone or anything like that. So that is great. And I also like the flip of that as well, because as you say, if it's realistic to a game, how many shots does your striker get in one game? Might be one or two maximum. But in practice, you want to replicate the fact that he's going to get those one or two chances, 100 different replications of it. So I think that's awesome. I really do. We'll be back after a short message from Session Share. Do you need fresh ideas for your football, soccer training? Then follow Session Share on YouTube and X. Our handles can be found in the show description. Session Share, for coaches, by coaches. Welcome back. So, Rob, we're going to finish the podcast on a bit of a lighter note. Can you tell me what your favourite moment was in sports? It can be anything, as a player, a fan, a coach.
Actually, do you know what? I was thinking about something else, but it was quite funny because today it popped up on like a Facebook, like one of them kind of Facebook memories, and it was 5 years ago today. We went. It was my eldest 18th birthday. We went to Salou in Barcelona for like a surprise kind of few days away. And part of it, me and the youngest son went to the new camp to watch Barcelona. And actually, kind of come up on the memories of we managed to get on film like Messi scoring a free kick, and it kind of panned round to my son, his face, and all the rest of it. So that's kind of those kind of moments, and actually linking to that because my son's actually coaching with me now, so he was on the holiday camp, and I was showing the
Awesome.
other coaches on the lunch break, and he said that was brilliant. But also, there's a little video of us having Domino's pizza sat outside the new camp. So it's like the Domino's, and then like pans up to the stadium. So he said, "Yeah, I'll
Oh,
always
wow.
remember that." So that was actually quite wasn't my original thought, but that come up today, and I thought that was quite powerful.
I totally agree. And it really is something when I'm a father of three boys myself, so I completely get it. The amount of times that I've had these memories, but those memories are so much better when, quote unquote, that it's so much better when it's shared. It really is. Like, you have that bonding moment with your kids, see those opportunities. Like, my son, we got to see Messi play in MetLife Stadium when they came over here. So, and he still remembers that, even though he was really young at the time. So it was a good like 6-7 years ago or something, maybe even longer. So I 100% agree. It's a great moment that you can enjoy that sport, and that's, again, it seems like this podcast has been about bonding from the start to the finish, to be perfectly honest. So what a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah, and I think it's actually quite special at the moment because he's just started his coaching journey and he's doing some coaching with me on the holiday camps, all the rest of it. So it kind of, but that's what football's all about. It's about that bonding. It's about, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a father and son or a father and daughter or a mother and daughter or anything like that. But those bonds you make, especially when you see players you used to coach on the street and they kind of still remember you and you have a little chat and you've got fond memories of being, they've got fond memories of being coached by you. That's massively powerful as well. It means you've had an impact on someone's life, and that for me is the most important thing: is the enjoyment while they're there, and then actually the memories you create. I think is so powerful.
Or maybe we'll have Porter Jr. on here at some point. So
You never know.
well, thank you very much for your time, Rob. This has been great. I've had a really good time chatting and talking about it. So, Rob, if any of our listeners want to get in touch, do you have any social media platforms that you use?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it now. It's RJP Coach. So that's mine, and I think the main one. Go over to the Sunday Share as well and have a look at that. It's not my kind of page, but I help with the admin. But that's another one like yourselves. Do loads of good work for the coaching community. So that's another one that is definitely worth having a look at.
Yeah, I follow Sunday Share as well. I really enjoy what they post and how we're doing exactly the same as we are doing here, collaborating coaches to coaches, making sure we can all grow in the game. So, again, thank you very much, Rob, for your time. I really do appreciate it. This was a brand new episode of Session Share, the Coaches Podcast. Thank you to Rob for his time. Please make sure to join all our social media platforms and give us a comment and mention about this podcast. This has been Session Share, the Coaches Podcast. Thank you for listening, and thank you for coaching the beautiful game.